Are there any other risks? I mean, assuming that it's pure. I mean, has there been any connection between any association between methylene blue and, for example, cancer?
No. So the key is the dosing. Okay, if you keep it super low dose, it's actually very, very safe. However, there are some things to think about, right? So if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, you shouldn't take methylene blue. There are some very poor studies, but studies showing that it might have an effect on, the mom or the baby. So really just the baby, obviously. So don't recommend there. Because it's a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, it increases norepinephrine, dopamine, and serotonin. So there is so the first thing to say there is that if you have high blood pressure, some people with high blood pressure will see their blood pressure rise on taking methylene blue. Now, a corollary to that is that we're seeing lots of people with positional hypotension and tachycardia using methylene blue and having a significant benefit to their symptoms as a result of the blood pressure increase that's happening. And another piece of this, which we didn't talk about, is that methylene blue also has a significant effect on nitric oxide production. And there's different types of nitric oxide. There's nitric oxide that happens when we have an infection, and that's the type of nitric oxide that methylene blue kind of neutralizes. It doesn't really affect in a negative way the nitric oxide that's made by our mitochondria itself. So you have where was I going here with this? So
risks, high blood pressure.
That's right. Thank you very much. So we have the high blood pressure risk, but also because it's increasing serotonin and norepinephrine, you have to think about those antidepressants as I talked about. So there have been a couple studies that showed IV methylene blue, high doses of serotonin reuptake inhibitors would potentially cause serotonin syndrome, which is dangerous and can kill people, right? But it's never been shown with oral methylene blue before. But even still, and we're using very low doses with what we do, but we still recommend if you're going to use methylene blue, you're on an SSRI or SNRI, you have to work very closely with your provider before you'd want to start it. That's a major thing. And so other risks are detox kinds of symptoms. And so, because you're revving up energy production and your detox pathways when you're using methylene blue, you can find some people will have like your detox kinds of symptoms. But if you go very slowly with the dosing, like the key with methylene blue, or just blue here at 16 milligrams is really just to slowly titrate your dose. You don't want to start off with a full troche, and we can talk about that, what a troche is, but the dose escalation every 3 to 5, maybe every 5 to 7 days, depending on how sensitive you are. That's really the best way to kind of figure out where your right dose is going to be. And for some people, like if it's a chronic issue, they may have to take it for weeks or months as their system is optimizing itself. And hopefully when you're optimizing vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and cofactors and doing all that too, and your lifestyle, your diet, of course, then you can slowly wean them off of the methylene blue. In others that are doing more for performance-related reasons, or travel or things like that, then you can use it more intermittently depending on your needs. Right?
Yeah, is this the kind of thing that you want to take like every day to see the benefits of, or is it something to be thought of in a more like acute setting if you want a mitochondrial boost? Or
it could be both. It could be both. Really, it really depends on what your needs are. So if you're relatively well optimized, taking it a couple of days a week when you have more stress, for example, like if you don't sleep very well, or you're going to be under bad lighting all day, or if you're going to travel especially. So traveling is a big stress on our mitochondria. We know that. So at sea level, which is where most of us are, and then on an airplane, you're at 8,000 feet pressurization, right? So that 8,000 feet pressurization has much less oxygen in the air, so you're much higher risk for jet lag, infections, and feeling terrible when you land, right?
I've actually taken it the last time I flew transatlantically.
Nice.
To London. Yeah, I had heard about it because I've actually bought from you guys before.
Yeah.
Just to make it clear for listeners, like there's no commercial affiliation here. I'm actually a customer. I've bought some of your guys' stuff, and I remember taking it before, or maybe during or after. I don't remember, but it was like around the flight.
Yeah.
I remember. I mean, not having much jet lag.
That's great. It's kind of one of those things where if you don't have something, it's hard to know that you didn't have it, right? And it's hard to if you didn't get sick, well, would I have gotten sick? You don't know for sure. But it really does work that way. And we have a full jet lag protocol on our website that talks about how to stack your methylene blue dosing depending on your timing at the destination where you're going to try, because obviously when you're trying to travel, many of us are trying to shift our time zone before we get there, or trying to get on that time zone as fast as we can. So you can use methylene blue to help you actually.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, and we have another product called Blue Canatine, which is a combination of methylene blue with nicotine, caffeine, and CBD. That's that one. That's a sample product. Yeah.
As a medical doctor, are you for or against nicotine?
I'm for nicotine, low doses, not smoked, not vaped. Okay. Nicotine itself has great studies. I'm not sure if you're aware, but great studies on mild cognitive impairment, cognitive ability, verbal fluidity, memory recall, so much. It's short acting. It's great. Now, saying that, high doses, especially with vaping products and cigarette products, so if you have a vaping product, it's at least 10 to 20 milligrams per hit. If it's a cigarette, it's 26 milligrams of nicotine in a full cigarette. Okay. That's on average. And
26 milligrams in a cigarette?
In a cigarette, yeah. Huh. And it's about 10 to 20 milligrams of nicotine per hit, I think, on the nicotine vapes. It might be a little bit less than that. I'm not exactly sure. But in addition, not only do you have nicotine, but you also have the additives in both of them. And they've shown in very many studies that the additives are increasing the addictive capacity of nicotine. No doubt about it that nicotine itself is addictive. It increases dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine. It does that. But if you have a slow release formula, like we have we do in something called a buccal troche, which is a dissolvable lozenge that goes between your upper cheek and gum here. And the nice thing about that is that these troches they're scored so that you can actually break them up into quarters, halves, or fulls very easily. So you can kind of optimize your dose. You can do that with all of our products. But then in addition, it bypasses metabolism in the liver. So liver slows everything down and also degrades everything, right? And that's what liver's supposed to do. But if you dissolve it up here, within about 5 to 10 minutes, with the bluecanatine, you're going to start feeling your focus, your productivity, your flow, and it's just going to be like you feel on, which is great. And it has CBD in there and the methylene blue as well. They're both very protective at the same time. So you don't get the come down or crash or anything like that. So like for traveling, oftentimes the methylene blue while I travel, the Just Blue, and then the bluecanatine when I get to my destination and I got to be, on so that I can rock whatever, what I'm doing that day, that kind of thing. So
yeah. I had been, for its nootropic effects, using nicotine for the past year, I would say.
Okay.
I was using like the pouches.
Yeah.
And also recreationally. I mean, I just enjoyed it. And then a month ago, I stopped cold turkey.
Yeah. How long did it take you to feel?
I didn't find it addictive. I mean, here's the thing. It's hard to parse whether or not you're addicted to something versus whether or not you just like doing it, Yeah. And I guess
it's the physical dependence versus psychological dependence.
It was so easy for me just to stop. I just put them all out of view and I stopped.
Did you have any symptoms when you stopped?
Zero.
Yeah. So nicotine does typically have a withdrawal effect if you've been taking a lot of it.
Maybe like 24 hours.
Yeah, but it's
not like a slight headache.
It's very, very mild overall. So it's not like coming off of caffeine or something like that where you get headaches for a month or something. And that's related to a lot of different aspects. But nicotine in general, low doses, less than 4 milligrams a day is what they say is not addictive if you're not vaping it or smoking it. So in our troches in the bluecanatine, it's 1 milligram per full troche. And the average dose is a half, which is just obviously a milligram of nicotine. So
wow, yeah, it's pretty low dose.
Very low dose, has a little bit of caffeine in there, 50 milligrams, 50. So it's just a quarter cup of coffee. But even just a half of that with some methylene blue and CBD, it feels like being on a stimulant, but without the jitters, without the come down, without the crash. And so we have, practitioners that are working with patients to wean themselves off their stimulants, their prescribed stimulants, using this instead. And so I obviously don't recommend doing that without a physician helping, but this is a fantastic way to not be on those, right?
Does methylene blue by itself have any stimulant properties?
So it's not a stimulant per se. Like what people would feel when they're on methylene blue is they feel like this rise, like this subtle energy, sort of wide focus, just everything lifts a little bit. But it doesn't feel like you're like snapping your fingers like, oh my God, I can do whatever, like put it in front of me, let's go. That's more the bluecanatine because that has the stimulants in there with the nicotine and the caffeine.
Yeah.
So, but for me, what I use on a regular basis is the Just Blue at low doses. And I use that in a lot of my patients as well, as I'm supporting them through the process of their health optimization journey, which can be long for many people.
How do you avoid having a blue mouth all the time if you're using it every day?
So good question. So with the Just Blue, the pure methylene blue, I usually recommend swallowing it actually. And the reason for that is that methylene blue is very highly bioavailable. So it's our one product that we have that I do recommend swallowing if you don't want to have a blue mouth. Now, the caveat to that though is that if you do have more cognitive symptoms, more brain fog, fatigue, concentration, those who use it in their mouth, they do feel better faster that way. Methylene blue is so unique because most supplements, I always use the example of NAC, NAC. If you take 100 milligrams of NAC, only 10 milligrams of that is going to get into the body, right? It's 10% bioavailable. With methylene blue, it's just about 100% bioavailable, whether you take it in a troche, whether you swallow it, or obviously if you get it in the IV too. And so what's going to be different about methylene blue in that case is just going to be how fast it gets into the system compared to, the other routes of administration. So
would you not want to take it around sleep?
Right. So I usually recommend starting in the mornings because it can make people feel more more active, more energetic, but not in a stimulated sort of way. It doesn't usually keep people awake, but usually want to start it off in the morning. Sometimes you can dose it. I'll dose it in my patients twice a day. Sometimes like 8 o'clock in the morning and about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And the key for me is that, as you're alluding to earlier, is like, are we doing like intermittent dosing? Are we doing everyday dosing? It really just depends on the person and what they're going through, right? If I have somebody that's coming to see me with chronic fatigue and inflammation, a lot going on, then I'm going to be like, well, you know what? Maybe we should really have you on this daily, find your right dose that's helping you, and then keep it on there for a while before we start weaning it down. Methylene Blue is going to help your mitochondria work better. It's going to help regenerate the mitochondria. We're also doing these other things like getting you outside and changing your diet and, making sure that you're not snoring next to somebody or something. Like, if there's a snoring partner, get rid of the snoring partner, go into a different room. Sleep divorces are real and they're good. Go for them if you need them.
I support, yeah.
Yeah, do you know, like, I think it's about 50% of U.S. couples or something like that
are now getting a sleep divorce.
Yeah, they call it like a sleep union now. I think they're trying to make a positive spin on it, but stress is a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And so the other piece that I think about a lot is not only to energetically optimize people, but also to work on the parasympathetic side too, right? Like that's the off switch of our brain.
Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.